We've been talking about what it's like to have a cramped calendar and how it can be very overwhelming. I don't know about you guys, but like for me, it can be very overwhelming when I look at, especially like look at a week, like this last week was homecoming week. And homecoming week, if you're involved in the school, is a lot. It's awesome, but it's a lot. They're building floats and I had meetings and I had practice and there was just a lot going on. Those of you who've chatted with me today, I don't feel great. And I was so tired midway through the week, and I was like, oh, it's just homecoming week. Like, I didn't think I was sick because I was like, I'm just tired because it's homecoming week. And homecoming week is always really exhausting. And in the mornings of my little, what's going on in my day, goes and it lists all these after school activities. I'm like, and it's just, it can get to be really a lot when our calendars get really full, and it can get to feeling very overwhelming when our calendars are just, when our day is really full, our calendar's really full, and I get to thinking about all the things I have to do, and oh my gosh, how am I going to get it done? How am I possibly going to have time? And I get all up in my head about how can I possibly get it all done? How am I going to get through this? How am I going to get through the week and not be totally wiped out and totally exhausted? And I wonder, like, I know other people feel this way, because when you talk to people, they're like, oh, like, I'm good, I'm busy, I'm good, but man, I'm tired. And we live this lifestyle in America where we're just tired all the time, and we feel like so many people I talk to, they talk about how tired they feel and how exhausted they feel because they just have so much going on, especially families, especially parents with kids and all the things. Like my brother has a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old, and he's going hunting, and my sister's going camping with my mom, and so my mom is taking care of my niece, my 13-year-old niece, for the weekend. And my mom is 70, and she's like, I gotta tell them that we are only doing essential activities this weekend because Madeline will pack in, like a friend is coming to stay the night, and so here are my 70-year-old parents with two 13-year-old girls staying the night, and then they've got to go to, I don't know, some like camp during the day here, and they gotta go bowling this day, and she's in a bowling league, and my mom's already thinking about that weekend. She told my dad, she's like, you cannot come home. I don't care if you get 5 deer on Friday night, you can't come home until like Wednesday, because I'm gonna need time to recover. After watching my 13-year-old for a couple days, I'm gonna be so busy and so overwhelmed that I'm gonna need a few days to recover. And so even though the weekend hasn't even started, my mom's already tired just thinking about it. So it isn't even just like people with kids. Like, it can be really tiring when you just know that you're gonna have this really busy season, this really busy week. It can be like, oh, how can I possibly do it? And so I was looking up, as I said last week, I was looking up some statistics on busyness, and as I said last week, you know, a lot of us think that, oh, we're just working so much more. That's why we're so tired. But Gallup, or whoever did the poll, found that actually we're working less. Our jobs are less. Most jobs are in the neighborhood of 40 hours a week, where it used to be they were like 60, 70, 80 hours a week. So that's less. And then Gallup did a poll, and they asked everybody that they polled, did you have enough time yesterday to get done everything you needed to get done? And now if you ask me that question, very often I feel like I'd say no, I did not. But they said 70% of people said, yeah, I did. I had time to get everything done. So 70% of people had the time to get it all done. Why do so many of us feel so exhausted all the time? And I saw this quote. This woman wrote a book, which I kind of want to read, but I'm too busy, ironically. Her name is Bridget Schulte, and she wrote this book, Overwhelmed: How to Work, Love, and Play When No One Has Time. And she says one theory about why we feel so overwhelmed all the time is that the overwhelm is a function not so much of what the things we actually have to do, but of how much time we spend thinking about the things we have to do. And I am totally guilty of this. It'll be 10 o'clock at night, and I'm laying in bed trying to go to sleep, and I'm thinking about all the things I have to try to get done tomorrow. And I can't relax. When I have the time to relax, I can't relax because I'm so busy thinking about all the things I didn't get done, and all the things I'm going to have to get done, and the things I'm going to have to get done next week. And I get so up in my head that I can't actually rest when I have the time to rest. And so for me, I can totally see this, and God has helped me recognize exactly what she says. He's like, Stephanie, you have time to rest right now. Do it. Stop thinking and worrying about what's going to happen in the future. Stop thinking and worrying about next week. I'll get you through next week. Stop stressing about it. Just let me into your life, and I'll take care of it. Because I get this way all the time. And so I've been talking about examining why we're so busy the last 2 weeks, why we're so busy, how we get so overwhelmed. So this week I want to give you finally some actual practical tips to not feel so overwhelmed all the time about how busy we are. So one practical tip, I don't even remember where I heard this. I heard it years ago, and I have started doing it in my life. And for me, this has been really helpful. It's called the one-touch rule. When I come home and I take my coat off, my coat doesn't go on the couch. It goes on the coat tree, the little coat rack, or the closet. When I have a glass of water that needs to get washed, I don't put it on the coffee table. I take it to the kitchen and I put it in the sink. I don't have a dishwasher. I'm not fancy like that. But you know, it's like a lot of people, they take the plates and they put them in the sink instead of putting them in the dishwasher. And now your sink is overwhelmed, you gotta take time to fill the sink. Like if I have I'll wear a sweatshirt to school because it's cold in the morning and then I get hot during the day. So I come home and I unload my backpack, and where do I want to throw my sweatshirt? On the bed. That just means tonight when I go to bed, I gotta take time to put it away. And so the one-touch rule says, take it out of the backpack, fold it, and put it away in the closet. It always goes where it lives. Don't put it in a temporary place, because if we put all these things in temporary places, then I have to spend all of Saturday taking them from where the temporary place is and putting it away and cleaning. So the one-touch rule is a great way to it ultimately saves yourself time, because that 30 seconds it takes me, the 30 more seconds or 1 more minute it takes me to fold the sweatshirt and put it in the closet versus throwing it on the bed, and the end of the day will save me a ton of time. So the one-touch rule is one great way to save some mental energy and some time. And then there's this guy named David Allen, and he wrote this book called Getting Things Done. This book is old, but he talks about how people get so stressed out about all the things they have to do and they don't get it all done. So he wrote a whole book, and of course, again, I don't have time to read it. So I watched a video, which is like the Cliff Notes of it, because a friend of mine, her husband read it, and he said it was really good. So the very super basics of what he says is the first thing you need to do is capture your day. So when I get to work and I sit down on my computer and I get logged in and I look at my email, the first thing I need to do is make a list of all the things I have to get done today. And I just brainstorm the whole list. And then I look at the things, and if he says, ask for each, once you get the list, is each item actionable? Is it something I need to physically do? Like some things are like, I'd like to come up with a new this, or I want to consider this, or some of them are like big, overreaching, far end things. So those you kind of put towards the bottom. But if it's like an actionable thing, like I need to email the teachers to tell them when the cheerleaders get dismissed for the pep rally. We had a pep rally Friday. That's something I can do in 2 minutes. So the 2-minute rule is, can you do it in 2 minutes? If so, just do it now. So like for me, in the morning, my sink is full of dishes because I didn't do the one-touch rule. I just piled them in the sink, and now my sink is getting full, and so, but I can wash dishes in 2 minutes because there's just one of me. And so the 2-minute rule is, I've got this thing to do, it'll take 2 minutes, just do it. Just do the dishes. Oh, I need to send these 3 emails, just type them and send them. The really short things, just get them done, knock them out right away. And then what you do is with the rest of the items, you have to organize and prioritize them. So it's kind of like triage, like in an ER. Like imagine a bus, there's a big bus accident and all the people come in. What do? They triage them, right? They capture everybody's needs. Who's hurt? What's wrong with them? Who needs the care right now? Who could wait? Who just needs this little baby thing? Maybe, if it's just a matter of suturing someone, let's just get them knocked out. Who's having a heart attack? We got to get them in surgery. So it's kind of like triaging. And it reminds me of the story of the rocks and the pebbles and the sand. Have you guys heard the story with the jar and the rocks and the pebbles and the sand? Anyone not? I can show you the video. It's short.
There's a well-known story about a university.
I think a lot of us get bogged down with the sand. I often think when someone calls and they need something, I'm like, oh, they want a piece of me. They want a piece of my time. And sometimes I'm very happy to give it. But it's really easy in life. There's so many little things that need our attention, that ask for our attention. I don't even say need our attention, that ask for our attention. And it's really easy to fill our jar with sand, and then we get to the end of the day and then we're stressed out because we didn't put the rocks in. And so this is why David Allen says we've got to not only organize but prioritize. What is the most important? And I love that she said, what is most important? My family, my friends. What are the little pebbles? Work. And how often do we fill our jar, those of us who are still working, we fill our jar with the pebbles. Or we fill our jar with the sand, all the little things that at the end of our lives, were they really important? And we wear ourselves out because we've filled our jars with the sand, and we have not left enough time for the rocks in our lives. So we need to organize and prioritize what has to get done today. It's kind of like triage. What has to get done? What things can be put off? What things would I like to do, but if they don't get done, it's fine. You know, my friend, she's super clean. And she literally, when we come back from vacation, she can't go to bed until she has washed her laundry and cleaned her house. I come home and I put the suitcase here and I lay down on the couch or I go to bed, like depending on how late it is. I am totally fine leaving that laundry in its suitcase for a day or so. But she can't do that. For her, that is just not right. And so we've got to prioritize our time and our energy. We've got to prioritize our space and our time so that we have time and space for our family. You know, I was just telling my mom, I said, you know, I sometimes get really lonely as a person and I realize that I've created this problem for myself. And the reason I feel so lonely is because I've worked so hard and spent so much time filling my jar with pebbles and sand that I have not kept space in my life for the rocks of my family and the rocks of my good friends. And so eventually they stop trying to get in the jar. You know, my family doesn't call because they're like, oh, she's too busy. I don't want to interrupt her. Or my mom, they came this weekend, and my dad said she's all stressed out about coming because she was afraid she would take up too much of my energy. I'm like, Mom, you're my mom. I want you to take up my energy. You're a rock. You're not a pebble. But I have made myself so busy over my life that I have made my family feel like they're sand instead of the rock that they are. And so I think it's really important for us to prioritize and be able to say no to things, to preserve our emotional health. And his third tip is then, of course, to do the things. Once you make the list, now you do the things. So that part is a no-brainer. But we are kingdom people. So all those tips are great. Those are good practical tips, and I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, we Christians are kingdom people. And as a kingdom person, I've got to make God one. I got to make God one of my rocks. And how many of us make God sand? How many of us fill our day with all the sand, and at the end of the day, there's no room for the rock of God? How many of us don't start our day with God? How many of us can't understand why we're so stressed out, and we've never asked God into our day? We've not taken the time to develop that relationship. And God is saying, hey, make me one of your rocks. If you make me one of your rocks, I'll help you take care of all the other stuff. So when I'm feeling really stressed out, I'm like, how will I ever get it done? And oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed about thinking about my schedule. I have to remind myself that God said, these are Jesus' words. He says, therefore, and once again, when Jesus says therefore, it's there for a reason. He's about to drop a truth bomb on you. He says, therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life. Don't worry about what you're going to eat or drink. Don't worry about your body. Don't worry about what you're going to wear. Isn't life more than food and your body more than just for clothes? I mean, look at the birds. They don't sow and reap and store away, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single day to your life? As we're laying there at night, thinking and worrying about all the things that have to get done, and how we're ever going to possibly get it all accomplished, and how we're going to find the time, can I buy time that way? Can I make more opportunities that way? No, I'm just stressing myself out. I am losing that rest time. I'm losing my rejuvenation time by worrying. But he says, seek first the kingdom. Come to God first. Make God one of your big rocks. And his righteousness and all these things will be they're just given to you. Therefore, don't worry about for tomorrow. Tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Jesus is saying, when you put God first, when you invite him in, he helps you. And I have found when I do this, when I remember to do this, I imagine my count like a physical calendar. I mean, mine's on my phone, but I imagine a physical calendar. When my calendar is really full and I'm getting overwhelmed about it, I close my eyes and I picture it as a physical calendar and I go like this. Here, God, take it. I don't know how I'm going to get all this done. Help me. And invariably, whenever I do that, meetings get canceled, rescheduled. When I was doing seminary stuff and I was like, oh my God, this week I've got to write 2 8-page papers and I've got to do all these posts and I got to do all this stuff for church and I got to do all this stuff for school and I got to do all this stuff for chilling. And, how am I going to get it done? And then I was like, oh, I've got an hour. I'm going to start on my paper. And I wrote 80% of my paper in like an hour and a half. And that, I was like, this is by the grace of God that I was able to write this paper this fast. When we hand our schedule off to God and we don't worry about it and we let him be a part of it, God is faithful to come through in our lives. He helps you get it done faster. Maybe he brings someone along into your life who is willing to help you do it. Maybe he helps you see that it doesn't need to get done right now. Who knows? But our job as kingdom people is not to worry. Our job as kingdom people is to give everything to God, invite him in, let him be the first rock in your jar for the day. I start my day every day. Once I get ready for school, I sit down and I have a good 40 minutes when I just hang out with God. And we talk about the day, what's going on, or read the Bible, like we just touch base. He is the first rock in my jar every day. Because I want to make sure he gets in my jar. Because once he's in the jar, he magically makes the jar work out. He makes it so that the necessary things fit in the jar. And so my question to you is, when you're feeling overwhelmed, are you inviting God into your day? Are you handing your calendar off to him and saying, hey, Lord, help me with this? A busy day can be met with a calm heart when we let God in. A busy day can be met with a calm heart when we don't worry and we invite God to be a part of that. And so that's what I'm asking you guys to do this week, as you enter into these busy seasons where December's coming, it's like winter is coming. Does Greg know? Anyone know that reference? Winter is coming. Winter is coming, December is coming. I feel like December is always a crazy month. Okay? We can get through December when we invite God to be one of our first rocks in our jar. And so I dare you this week to try some of these tips out. To invite God in first. Let God be your first rock. Okay? Maybe try one of the other. Try the one-touch roll. Try the 2-minute roll. Try David Allen's tips. Try some of these things and see if God doesn't make your day better. Ask God to come into your calendar. Imagine yourself handing it off to him and asking him to help you with it. You could read Matthew 6, where I just read you. Maybe you'll get something else out of it. Maybe God will really speak to your heart if you let him speak to you through his own word. And then to engage, share some of your calendar. As this starts to work and you hear people talking about how overwhelmed they are and how frustrated they are and, oh my gosh, I can't get it all done and I don't know how to do it, be like, hey, you know what I found to be helpful? When I give my calendar to God in the morning, I have found that he takes care of me. You know what I have found to be helpful? When I start to get really overwhelmed, I remember Matthew 6. Maybe you should try reading Matthew 6. Start sharing some of these tips with other people, and that's how we share the gospel with people. We don't do it by standing on the street corner like, God is good, repent and turn away. We do it by helping people see that God helps us in our everyday life. And so this week I challenge you to give yourself over to God, make him one of the biggest, the biggest rock in your jar. And all God's children said,